Hi, everybody. This is Lisa Dolly with the Mighty program at the UNC School of Education. And we're back for our webinar series on innovations in game-based learning. Very excited to welcome our special guest today, Bron Stuckey. And Bron is going to be talking about taking a pedagogical hammer to technology. Really excited to have you with us, Bron, and thank you for waking up at the crack of dawn in Sydney. And getting ready to be with us today. So I am going to turn over to Beatrix to give you a formal introduction, and then we're going to pull up your slides so you feel ready to go.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Lisa. So I just want to quickly introduce Bron Stuckey. She's the Global Consultant Specialist in Gameplay, Game-Inspired Learning, Communities of Practice, and Learning Communities. She's an educator dedicated to student engagement in schools and high-quality professional learning for teachers. Her expertise includes game design, game-based learning, and gamification. She's been in games for quite a while before Minecraft got popular, through 10 years with the highly successful Arizona State University Quest Atlantis program. She now explores, curates, and supports teachers using games and play in their classrooms, and also creating community so all of our next wave of teachers are really excited to bring gameful practices into the classroom. And with that, let's get started. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Beatrix and Lisa. I'm going to be talking a little bit about taking a pedagogical hammer to technology, but I'm only going to focus on one slice of something that I think is vitally important, underpinning future-ready pedagogy. That's kind of tricky language, but I think you'll get the point that I want to make. There's a very good reason to stop and focus on this first picture, because it really warms my heart in many ways, that if we're going to take a pedagogical hammer to technology or to any part of our learning environments, and particularly to games and game development, then I'd like to see more girls leading the way doing that. So more power to her. Okay, so the tenet that I want you to take away from today, or the measure that you should be questioning any innovation, any new program, any activity that you're engaging in your classroom, is, does it serve self-determination theory? And this is the work of Deci and Ryan over a number of years, but I focus specifically on their 2000 paper. And this is only one slice of all their large motivational theory work. But I think if you think about the 4 C's or any of the other mantras that we currently have in education, whether you think thinking 21st century learning or not, and I was in a debate yesterday where people were saying that 21st century learning is so passé, but we're still struggling to find what the correct term is. So what we want to think about or measure is, do the programs we develop offer students autonomy, competence, and relatedness? And that's the hammer, essentially, that I'm going to offer up today and ask you to take to the programs that you engage with. And maybe they won't pass the hammer test. Okay, so what does that all mean? Self-determination theory is basically premised on 3 basic human needs: competence, autonomy, and relatedness. So competence being the ability to gain mastery over something, to feel comfortable in the dealing with the environment, to be working towards goals of your own, to have developed skills, knowledge, and understandings. Autonomy is the control of the course of our lives, yes, and that's much more than I've seen over the last few months at a number of different conferences, where people are talking about agency as if it is a matter of just giving students a few choices in a task or a few choices in an activity. So it's much more about them setting the goals, perhaps them setting the assessment. And I've been doing work with schools here in Sydney looking at student-engaged assessment and student articulation of learning. And that's all very much part of becoming autonomous learners. People crave autonomy. They want to feel that they're choosing the direction that their lives are taking. And that's really important for all our students, no matter what age they are. And then there's relatedness, and that's the need to have close relationships with people, to build community, and to build mentoring, to build leadership, to build strong ties, strong supportive ties to other people. And my actual doctoral studies were in communities of practice, educational communities of practice. So the understanding of community and identity underpins almost everything I do. So that relatedness is very close to my heart. So these three things make up the basics of self-determination theory. And they're the measure by which I'm going to present some cases today of gameful learning that I think very much support self-determination theory and give you a good picture of what that looks like. I just want to stop for a second and say that I'm going to be presenting cases of some very highly expert teachers in gameful practices and some teachers who've just newly stepped into those gameful practices. And there's a very important reason why I'm doing that, and that is that through my research work and through a lot of discussions with people in innovation, it seems to me that we present a lot of exemplars to teachers that gets them vision and excitement, but it doesn't necessarily give them their first steps into a new practice. And so I want to focus on stories of people at all different stages of their use of self-determination theory or application of it, even if they don't know that's what they're doing. And intuitively, a lot of teachers will already do this. So they already had this hammer. I didn't need to give it to them. So you will hear cases of some teachers that are newly working and some very expert ones. And before I move on, I noticed Peggy Sheehy's in the session, and she has a webinar coming up in this series that will totally exemplify everything that I'm going to talk about. So, if you need reinforcement, absolutely make sure you don't miss that. Okay, so I want to also take a step to remember that educational technology existed before it was electronic and before it was digital. And probably my most loved piece of educational technology was a parachute that I used in teaching, in elementary teaching with young children, doing all sorts of different games and activities. So I want to give a shout out there when I'm talking about games that we're not just talking about the digital, that we are talking about all forms of technology. And to that end, I want to take a technology that's very familiar to all of us and think about what happens if we apply self-determination theory or the underpinnings of self-determination theory to that technology and sprinkle in some fun. So let's take a look at what happens if we apply self-determination theory to the staircase. Now, many of you may have seen the Stockholm video of the musical Staircase, so I've actually chosen a different example to show in this case, and I'll just queue up a video in a sec. But if the Stockholm example was people were trying to experiment to see if doing something fun to the staircase would encourage more people to not take the escalator and move up the stairs. Now, what we see in that Stockholm example has been replicated all around the world and proves that giving an invitation to engage in something actually moves people in a direction they hadn't taken before. And that's kind of really important to what we're going to talk about today. Let's see if I've got this working. So this is in Brussels. Okay, so the musical staircase isn't a game, and it isn't, no one's forced to use it. People choose to engage with it. They engage perhaps accidentally at first, and then discover, explore, tinker with it, make music, become sociable, laugh, and have quite a lot of fun engaging with the staircase. And there's a build on from that if you look at YouTube of, where that versions of that have been created all over the world. And people have created dance videos, dancing on the staircase, and it's triggered a whole lot of things. But very close to home here in Sydney, for me, a colleague of mine, Lou Bow, who's with Whole School Partners, a consultant here, has been working with a school, Hamilton Primary School in New South Wales, and she showed the original Stockholm video to the students. And the kids went home and searched YouTube and came back, and she'd been teaching them technology with Makey Makey. And the kids had worked out how to build that musical staircase in their own school using the Makey Makey, alfoil, and wiring. And so that had triggered the imagination of kids. They'd gone off on YouTube, got really excited about it, thought, we'd love to do that. How do we do that? Has anyone else done this before? There is a Makey Makey script that you can get for it, for a piano, and then they adapted that. And the teacher was just blown away with how inspired the kids were, how creative they were, how passionate they were about what they'd done, and how self-motivated they were. And I think that's really at the crux of self-determination theory, that there was this space for the students to go off and explore and create and do something that meant something to them. Okay, so if we move on looking at the staircase, you'll see, and that's my hammer whack, yes, a whack for the musical staircase as a piece of self-determination theory. And so is this very simple times table on a staircase in the UK. Now, that's not a game either. But children made up their own games out of this. They invented ways to play with the staircase and with the numbers, and created play, tinkered with how to use that to make up their own. That's a fairly important point here, and it was a sociable space. So they were playing together, working out complex games children do, using those numbers on the staircase. So again, that's another piece of self-determination theory, is I think it's important that our games are an invitation. And this staircase is an invitation to do something. You can only just read and say this, but in many cases children won't. They want to bounce up the stairs or make up games or number or whatever they're working on play. So again, that's a piece of technology that became an invitation to become something else, like the musical staircase. So that's a big hammer whack for self-determination theory. Okay, let's have a look at this one. And you can probably all guess where this is built. Yes, in Minecraft. And this is a very, very intricate staircase. Yes, those of you who've built anything in Minecraft will recognize this as being something quite intricate to build. And in fact, I discovered quite recently there's a physical world staircase company that makes staircases for industry and homes that also builds staircases in Minecraft and sells them. Because they're staircase masters, they know how to do that and how to build beautiful staircases for Minecraft. This, in this case, was student built, very intricate. But again, Minecraft is that invitational space to engage, and it offers us a place to apply self-determination theory. The technology itself doesn't have any inherent pedagogy. And neither does self-determination theory in itself. It could underlie project-based learning, inquiry learning, the flipped classroom, lots of different methodologies or pedagogies can be supported by it. But I think it's the underlying vital point that you need to focus in on regardless of your chosen pedagogy. So those three staircases really have accepted the hammer and prove that we can do something more than we might have envisaged with the technology that we had, a simple staircase. Okay, so moving on, this is what we find in school. And this photograph is actually taken from a prestigious school here in Sydney, but I have similar photographs from all around the world. No games allowed in the learning centre. And that's unfortunately the separation that a lot of people have. Yes, and especially Minecraft. That's the separation a lot of teachers have, and certainly many parents and the media have, between learning, the serious work of school learning, and play and engagement in play practice or gameful practice. And so, you know, this separation is something we have to really overcome. And I think self-determination theory, if that becomes your measure or your hammer, it will allow you to work and weave against that. And so, yes, if that's what you see, then yes, oh, look, it's a fun police. And to me, yes, that's an epic fail. I was recently at a conference in another state here in Australia, and the teachers were all there. It was a games conference, education in games, run by our Australian Centre for the Moving Image. And all the teachers that were there were either practicing with game practices in their classrooms, or as my friend Rachel Bolstad in New Zealand calls them, game curious teachers. But they all had a similar problem of having to fight against this notion that games are something you do on Friday afternoon after the real work of school is done. And, you know, we really have to work to fight against that. So what can we do? Well, we know there's Minecraft, and in this particular group here in discussion, we have Enrique and Lynn, both who are very au fait with Minecraft and do amazing work. And there are 65 global leaders around the world supporting Minecraft in almost every country in the world. Amazing classroom practices happening. And, you know, I couldn't tell you one story. I could tell you 100 of the amazing things that teachers are doing. And it's not just about building in the world. It's about role play. It's about learning about society and governance. It's learning about survival. It's learning to be a digital citizen through a lived curriculum. It's many, many things. So Minecraft is such a rich space that really is an opportunity for self-determination to bloom, where students can build a community. And I very often hear teachers report that students who may not get on face-to-face in the physical classroom are working really well together online in Minecraft, and are learning that they can get on, that they can learn from each other, that one or the other may have skills that they need to accomplish their tasks in the game, in the world. Students are designing for themselves. And I think that's the exciting thing about Minecraft, because kids brought Minecraft to school, not teachers. The kids were talking about it. And from my experience, teachers started saying, what is this Minecraft thing? Why are all these children talking about it? Should I know about it? Should I do something about it? And so it's really their space. But what teachers are bringing is amazing pedagogy and really authentic and exciting challenges for those students to engage in. So it's more than just laying down some blocks and measuring the perimeter of something. It's really deep, intense learning. And students are learning to master a whole lot of skills, including now coding in different aspects. If people are running vanilla Minecraft, then they've been modding and managing servers and writing charters and managing a community in online in their school and outside. So this really is an environment ripe. It's the petri dish for self-determination theory to blossom. But there are others. You don't have to go to Minecraft. And I want to show one that I think, and it was intentionally built for the tertiary sector. And this really cracks open the learning management system idea in a way that I've never seen before. But it was built from a self-determination platform purposely. And so I'm just going to show a short video on that, which I think is really exciting. And we'll have a chat when it finishes.
It can be a little intimidating on the first day when the professor says you need 1 million points in this class to get an A. Here's all the ways you can get them.
I was both excited, shocked, and I just didn't really know what to think to a certain degree. It's like, wait, so does that mean I'm not getting a grade on each of these assignments? How do I know how well I'm doing?
I was used to coming into a class, being told what to do, and following those rules. Here, you really have to take your own initiative.
You may have a range of choices in a gameful course, and that can feel a little bit scary at first. But once you get past that, you feel more empowered, more in control of what's going on, and you know at many more steps how you're doing and what you need to do next in order to accomplish your goals.
There are a number of tracks you can take through this course. There's optional assignments. There's assignments you have to complete to unlock other assignments, and all of this is kind of explained to you in this learning management system that was really cool.
Yeah, the grade predictor was a really interesting tool as part of GradeCraft. I actually went on there and started
Hey, Bron, your mic is off. I don't know if she can hear it.
Sorry, sorry. I'll just repeat that. Yeah, I'm going to be tricked up turning mics on and off now. So the nice thing about Gradecraft is that you're setting your own path through the content of the subject. And there are many more assignments and ways to get through that path, things that unlock extra work if you want to do them, different pathways to go. And yes, that is a lot more work for the academics to set that out in the first place. But it's much more exciting for the students and for the academics to see the pathways that the students choose through the content. And there is a grade predictor tool on there that the students can look at the assignments they've chosen to do and predict what kind of grade they will get out of doing those. And so they're goal setting, they're constantly goal setting throughout the subject. But the other thing is students are never a failure. You can always make up if you've fallen behind or you've had, we've all been students when there were so many assignments due in one period of time that you often shed something or let something fall aside because you've got so much you've got to get done. So, this is a really beautiful tool, and I know they're looking at using it in other learning contexts and adapting it in different ways. So it's really worth having a look at, even if you only have a look at the tool to see how you could take some of what it does and bring that into your teaching and learning or into your assessment. And I think it's really interesting that, the often hard nut to crack in my experience has been science in the academic world, and yet it's the science teachers who've jumped on board with this at Michigan and are really enjoying it. So, but there are other learning management systems, Classcraft, Red Critter, that allow you to build a gamified curriculum. I think what's nice about this one is that it holds closer to where people might feel academic assessment needs to be, but still allows that student-driven, student choice, student autonomy to flourish. So let's go back to our slides. Okay. So I'm just going to stop with SmartLab for a second because we've all probably been there with the experience of electronic whiteboards and the inordinate amounts of money that were spent on electronic whiteboards in recent times, only to see many of them become shiny blackboards or covered over with a dust cover in the back of a room. Or perhaps even more upsettingly, people bought scads of worksheets to project onto them, electronic worksheets to use. But what's happening with SmartLab at the moment, I think, is heading in a really fantastic and exciting direction because their new tools are they're focusing in on collaboration, global collaboration, for students to be able to use the tools in joint projects with schools around the world. They're focusing in on a starter set of gamification tools, and they're okay. They're of the maybe Kahoot level, maybe a little better than that. But what really excites me is their new capacity to create modules. So a little like Gradecraft, you could create a sequence of modules through which the students could choose and make their way through the content. But the exciting part of that is it can now also be all downloaded to mobile devices that the students can be using anywhere. So the whole connectivity of it and the capacity to build a gamified structure inside the smart tools is quite exciting. And I think they are heading or wanting to head in a really open-ended direction away from the idea of prepackaged worksheet materials. So I was quite interested. I attended a conference for SMART and saw some really exemplary use of the new tools. So yeah, and accessing them on the phone or on tablets, which schools may have purchased, or on laptops or desktop computers is really great. And the tools can also be handed over to the students, which is, to me, the gold standard. If the kids can design it, I think, that's really exciting. But I also think teachers need to get back in touch with their sense of creative control. And I think the new Smart Lab tools will really open that up for a lot of teachers. And it will also convince a few people who haven't yet stepped into doing something gameful that they could do this, because the suite of starter tools is very simple to use. So, but where I think things might go is where this particular program is, Buzzy TV. And I have to say I'm currently on their board, and I don't have shares or anything, but advising them on use in schools. Now, Buzzy TV is a game creation platform. Students can create all kinds of games, and at the moment here in Australia, they're focusing on school libraries and libraries to create games. But those games can be played by people all over the world. So you can create a game and have it played by other players, challenge other players in the world, play real time. They've been actively involved in esports. But I want to show a video that I think is much more exciting than even that level. And I'm just going to mute my mic first. So what you saw there is one of the Buzzy TV games being played in a local, what we have here is Returned Soldiers Club in Australia, but it could be any kind of community club where people go to eat and socialise. People have been playing these games. But what's happening with Buzzy TV is children can be creating games in school that'll be played by their community in community spaces like this. They may be played in the cinema before the movie starts as a lead up to turn your phone off. So play the mobile game, and at the end the message is to turn your phone off. But this is making new venues for student designed games and legitimising student design outside the classroom. I think we really raise the standards when kids know that their product will be played by their grandparents and uncles and aunties in a social venue in their local community. And how proud would kids be of that? So Buzzy TV is a really exciting concept, and they've been doing a lot of festivals and other things, games created by lots of groups, some they've created themselves. But the school market's a really interesting space to start partnering up so that games can be played in public spaces that were designed by children. And I think that's really exciting. Again, it's a really, great piece of self-determination. That if you see go to their website, you'll see some of the play activity in from their blog, some of the video. It's very sociable and social. Kids are collaborating to design games, building community, but they're also building community in the play and broadening their community if those games get played outside the classroom. And in many cases, they choose the topic of the game and the style of game that it becomes. It's quite broad in what they can create. And they're really good people that are working on it. So, yeah, it's just out of startup. So, it's a really clever idea. So it's a smash for me. Okay, here's another total smash, and many of you will already know Lucas Gillespie from Surrey County, but his Epic Academy is truly one of the most inspirational teacher professional learning spaces I have ever seen. Now, it's a gamified professional learning for technology. Played across the district. It's an opt-in because that's really important. If you're going to offer autonomy, people need to be able to opt into it. And the same thing happens with in all the examples I've given you, Gradecraft or other things. Everyone has to want to be part of it or not. So with this program, teachers are earning micro-credentials for the professional development that they're taking, and that's counting towards their credits, professional development credits, or CEUs, is it? And they're doing those in technologies that are interesting to them. Some of the courses are run online, some of them are meetups and activities, some of them are held at ed camps or the state conference. All kinds of different activities are on offer. But probably the most exciting part of that is you can see a teacher standing there with a poster. Now, that is the physical poster of her micro-credentials. It has little stickers that you can put on it, and you can see those to the left. The post on the left is a Twitter post from a teacher about her awards. And you see quite a lot of these teachers using the social media to share out their celebration of their activity. But the interesting thing about this poster is that this is now a teacher learning in front of their students. This is a teacher's assessment of their learning on view for the kids to see and to ask questions about, what did you earn that badge for? How are you getting along? You haven't done much for a while. What are you working on? So this is teachers modeling self-managed learning in a way that I've never seen before. And while there's a digital interface and it's done in Resley, which was 3D Game Lab, and it has a whole interface which Lucas has developed there, a fabulous structure for the badges that are earned, and they can be output to Mozilla Open Badges, so they can be shared outside the county. People can have them as part of their professional identity. But this simple panel with some stickers on it is proving to be monumental. And in fact, I was talking to Lucas recently, and he was saying that a principal in his county had that on the outside of her office. And the kids would ask, "Oh, Miss, what did you earn that badge for? What did you have to do to get that badge?" And so this is students engaging in discussion with the principal of the school about her learning and what she was doing. And I just find that blows me away. And there are so many things about this program that are really sweet. As people level up, they become developers of other activities and challenges on the system. It has a back end, which is the discussion space for the county, and everyone evidences their work there and shares it in the public discussion spaces. So people get to see what you earned your badge for. What did you earn that badge for? Well, this is what you did, your 25 tweets or whatever it was you were working towards. So it's all done within the space and shared openly for other people to start to say, oh, okay, she's a bit of an expert on Pinterest. I should talk to her about that because I've seen she's done quite a lot of the Pinterest badges. So, it's starting to build a really frisky community around the technology and around the system. So it has a Google spreadsheet in the back end that monitors everybody, what everyone's doing, and it's all nicely pulled together between those different systems. But go figure, a chart on the wall with some stickers on it is probably generating more positive learning for kids than it may be for the teachers, with them seeing their teachers learn. So I just love, love, love this program. Yeah, North Carolina is a scary, scary, clever place. Absolutely, Enrique. Okay, so I was sticking to the professional space. This is one from New Zealand, a colleague of mine, Rachel Bolstad, who works for the New Zealand Council for Educational Research, has developed a role-play game called Curriculum for the Future, that is about envisioning the future of education in a very specific local space. I joined in a role play of this in a school in New Zealand 2 years ago, I think, and it was fantastic because it involves students, parents, teachers. Everybody was part of the discussion, and a number of people sit as the school board, and we formed groups and discussed what we thought was a must-have in the curriculum going into the future. And we had to lobby for our aspect of the curriculum to be included, and we had to lobby the school board to get that to happen. And it was fabulous having 13, 14, 15-year-old students with us who were throwing in, what direction they wanted things to take, and to be able to move forward with the school and make schooling better perhaps than it had been for them. It also exists now as a digital game, so it's in two formats, but I think the physical role play was really fantastic. And I think it's something you could put away half a day, call in, your school community, and really have an amazing discussion, because it allowed us to surface a lot of prejudices and assumptions we had about different aspects of the curriculum and assumptions we had about the future. So it was an amazing event, and really heartily recommend you go and have a look at that. There's another one of those places in the world like North Carolina that secret really good things are happening in, and that's New Zealand. So that's a definite BAM. All right, one of the things I'm a big fan of, and I see it used in many different ways, is Breakoutedu. And the two examples that I've got here, the one on the right that's a teacher professional development day. And they started their day out with everyone in teams playing a breakout to get into a gameful spirit for their professional learning day. And you could see they came in very serious, very academic to the start of the day. And by the time they played this, the attitude for the day was different. They were passionate, they were laughing, they were engaging with each other. It all felt that the tone of the day had changed. So, and they were looking at this as an onboarding experience. Okay, how could we use this at the start of this term for new topics or new interests that we want to bring the students into? The one on the left is a Sarah Torr here in Sydney at MacArthur Anglican School. And she was working, they're having a big problem, as most high schools are, with not enough students wanting to sign up for computer science. And she had organised a day of activities for the students to experience the computer science curriculum through a rolling series of activities. And one of those was a breakout. And again, the start of this breakout, these students were all sitting there prim and proper and, and quiet and studiously trying to work out the series of challenges that they had before they could break into the box and get the prize. And I must admit, I had absolute delight. One of the activities they had to do was they had 8 pictures of storage devices, and they had to put them in chronological order. And one of them was a floppy disk. And you can imagine at their age how many of them had ever seen or heard of a floppy disk. And all they had was an image. They didn't have any words with it. So they had to work out a strategy to identify it and then find out where it sat in a timeline of storage devices. So by the time they'd solved that problem, they were animated and excited and starting to work through a whole lot of other things. They were racing around the room and trying to see if they could break into the box without the secret code. And was there a way to cheat this? No. Okay, we've got to go back and work on the challenges some more. And so the whole spirit of the room changed when they were choosing to engage rather than feeling like something had been foisted upon them. And they could do all the challenges in whatever order they liked, and they could test breaking into the box at any time they felt they had enough of the code to do so. It was a totally different room by the end of it. And we're all standing around watching that particular team unlock the box and cheer. And everyone was happy to see someone solve the puzzle. And so it wasn't winners and losers. It was everyone happy to see the problem solved. So again, that's self-determination theory to me in big time, the same as the teachers who were given the opportunity to play, to engage in a playful space. And it was very community building for them in terms of their school atmosphere. Okay, this is a simple one that Alice Keeler and I developed called Simple Quest. It's a way to build a series of short challenges in using Google tools only, and then having the students map a path through them. And we have some small instructions. We're still refining it. It was actually designed on an airsick bag while Alice and I were flying somewhere, and we started mapping it out over a couple of airsick bags because we didn't have any paper, and it became Simple Quest. And we've got teachers now playing with it all around the world, and Alice is still working on some scripting for that to bring it further and further towards what other people are wanting it to be. The funniest thing we have with this, and I've run a number of workshops now with Simple Quest to get teachers to test it out, is what we find is the hardest part. Teachers can take their curriculum or their topic they want to work on. They can easily define 10 to 15 tasks that they could offer the students and choose which ones are compulsory and which ones are optional, and set a list of which ones, how many students have to complete, and etc. But then you say, okay, now turn those into creative challenges. Make them fun. And that's the point at which I find teachers really struggle. I don't know when school got so darn serious that teachers find it difficult to flip the tasks, the statement of task or the statement of outcome, and turn it into a fun, engaging challenge. And so, as I said before, I think we've got to work a little harder at getting teachers to take back creative control in their classrooms. Okay, this was at the Games and Education Conference in Troy this year. John and Joshua presented a play session in pandemic. And they looked at the leadership skills you could identify in watching students play pandemic. And they're working on research in this at Virginia Tech. Now, this again is an invitation to engage. I love the game. If you haven't played it, it's fantastic because you're not playing against each other. You're playing to collaborate to conquer a disease that's going to spread across the world in a pandemic. So you need to collaborate. You need to strategize together. And indeed, if one person wants to play as the sort of lone ranger in it, you won't succeed. So the game is quite complex to play. And the odds are stacked against you, as they would be in a real pandemic. But you can clearly identify leadership goals. You can identify community building out of playing such a collaborative game with high pressure stakes in an imaginary way. So there's some great work happening there. And a lot of gameful practice can come out of off-the-shelf games, out of using commercial games and adapting them for our own purposes. And that's where the pedagogical hammer comes in. How do you choose it? Well, the game itself doesn't have a pedagogy. You apply it to the game. So, that's your hammer. It didn't come in the box. Yeah, Lisa, I'm a huge supporter of using commercial games as well. Just going to give focus here to one from the amazing Paul Devasi from Canada, who was teaching Caesar and the Roman Empire and looking at a number of different resources to explore one of the particular battles. So they had Caesar's own account of the battle, his book, and they had a documentary about the Gallic Wars, and then they had Total War Rome, and the same battle appears in that game. And the students were able to critique all of those sources as if they were primary sources, so they come to discover that perhaps Caesar's account of things was not as accurate as it could have been. And then while they were playing the game, they were fact-checking, were certain aspects of what was presented to them in the game accurate and correct? And was it timely? Was it in the correct order of the time? So this is a rich, intense way of coming at a body of knowledge through different media, as it were, the documentary, the historical book, and then the game devised on the history. And we know from a lot of people who've played Civilization and other historical context games, I've heard so many people say, I learned most of my history from playing X because, those games are really well thought out and well designed. So again, this is self-determination theory at its best. Students were really collaborating and they needed each other to be able to fact check, to critique, to get to the nub of what was really true out of all of these resources. And that's really exciting work. All of Paul's work is exciting. So his blog, Ludic Learning, is really worth checking out. And that's definitely a smack. We're going back to New Zealand now quickly, and this is Simon Christie in a school in New Zealand, and they were engaging in the Crest Science Awards. Now, the Crest Science Awards are for students to design an authentic science project that would be a solution to a practical problem in the world. So it has to be authentic, it has to be meaningful, it has to have impact on the world. And they carry out their experiments and produce data and work in a scientific manner. And he had run this before and decided to gamify the program to give students a different pathway through the project, to give them more motivation and different ways to engage with carrying out that scientific work. And so he had compulsory aspects to it. He had additional things you could level up or power ups in the system. And much like the idea of gradecraft, there were many different ways to reach your goal, with the exception of the timelines, because the project had to hit certain milestones to be part of the Crest project. So this was really exciting stuff, and the students really appreciated having choice and having a path, mapping their own pathway, choosing which way they went. These were their own choice of projects, so these were passion projects that they worked through, some individual, some collaborative, but all of it was, again, self-determination theory. They were working collegially. They had a motivational system to work through. They had choice. They had options. They were choosing when to engage and how to engage. And you could complete all of your work well ahead of time if you were so passionate. You wanted to have all your weekends focused on it. There were no preclusions on students completing far ahead of time. So really nice work there, and there's a number of different gamification projects I could have chosen, but I like this one because this was this teacher's first attempt at doing this, and he feels like he's got the first steps. He's refining it for next year, but he feels very comfortable that focusing in on this kind of competition was a great way to bring and pilot a gamified project in the school. This teacher presented at the Games in Education conference in Troy, and I'm just giving a flag for her, a shout out for her, Teresa Burg. Absolutely brilliant teacher who does lots of gamified and game-like and gameful things in her teaching, and all of them invite students to engage, but don't necessarily pressure them to do. Many of them invite them to engage collaboratively. And one of the things she did, which I thought was very fun, was students would come in each morning to class and there would be some puzzle or something to solve on the desk. You know, it might have been a pipe cleaner and a note that said, make this into the shape of a historical object. There was some kind of little engagement, fun engagement or team project that was awaiting them when they came into school. Now, how different is that? You can imagine the kids eagerly wanting to know what it is that's going to be on their desks today to get into the classroom. How great would that be if that was the way kids came to school every day? Now, Teresa does many, many other things. They're all small and fabulous, but her approach to gamefulness is quite granular, but I would love to have been a student in her class. This is a teacher I'm working with immediately after this session. She's working with students she's counselling who have some behavioural issues, and she's been focusing in on empathy with them and how they can build better relationships with their peers. And so we're looking at using Gamefruit, which is a New Zealand product, but globally available to the world and has the F word, free, as a game design tool. And they're going to start today. Yesterday they worked on their story maps and designing their first level. And today they're going to start using Gamefruit to design a game around some kind of issue they've faced around empathy and bullying. So it's going to be very personal for them to choose something and to explore building games. Now, the reason we chose building a game is in conversation with these students who are being withdrawn for this counselling session in class. Many of these students are very high-level gamers, and they're coding and hacking games. And they already are dealing with very complex systems. So this is a way for the teacher to hear them talking as they engage in this complex system to design their own game. So they're going to be talking about their design. They're going to be writing about their design. They'll be designing and critiquing each other's and learning to give thoughtful and kind critique and, you know, how to tell people, you know, other than your game sucks, how to tell them, you know, how they might improve their game and to work on it, and then to be working on reflection on how far they've progressed with their game and what they want to be able to do more of. And we've got the game development company in New Zealand that's going to help them to work further on their game. So that's going to be an interesting space for those kids who in some ways feel like they're being pulled out of class for something, and giving them something kind of exciting and elite to do that perhaps, you know, will help them express themselves better and at least give their teacher a chance to hear them talk about how they engage with each other, because you can do a lot of activities, as we all know, and then children will go off and biff each other outside of the class. So this will be a good opportunity to hear them talking about their experience. I better move along quickly. Sorry, people. This is another teacher here in Australia. I'm giving you lots of Australian examples because I usually give Australians lots of American examples, and so I'm doing the reverse here. I was working with a startup on a game, and they wanted to get teachers to have a look at the game. And this particular teacher, who I love very much, Karen Binns, she said, you know, I teach senior kids in the elementary, but my kids would love to take this as part of design thinking, and, you know, maybe they can analyse what they think the game's like, take it down to kindergarten and watch the kindergartens play it and take notes, and then come back and work on some redesign ideas for the startup company. And, I thought that was a really brilliant way to give kids an authentic audience for their work. They're contributing to a startup's feedback, and they're doing something really legitimate inside design thinking. So again, to me, that's self-determination theory. The students are getting to choose how they want to engage with this game and making it part of their curriculum. The teacher's only offering it to them. They didn't have to engage in it. Okay, and the very last one, I know I'm going to be a minute or two over time, I'm sorry, but this one I can't not give you is the amazing Marianne Malmstrom, and some of you may know as No Clue, who was in New Jersey but now resides in New Zealand. And Marianne's been doing quite a lot of work since she was in a VR hackathon in New Jersey a couple of years ago, and she's been in a commercial hackathon in VR in New Zealand, which they actually won. And that was to develop an educational VR product for students to design their own VR spaces. And Marianne's school, which is Newlands Intermediate, is piloting this with the students. But more than piloting it, the students have become the mini design team and they're actually called the mini devs in this project. And so the students opted into this to be part of it, who wanted to be part of the VR idea. They have a vision for what they'd want to do with it. And they're helping to design a tool that in the end, other kids will be able to pick up and use to design VR environments. And they're really being treated with respect and as contributors by the actual development team. So I think that's by Theta, the actual development team. And I think that's exciting stuff. And I think, that, again, self-determination at its best. Kids opting in, there's a lot of social work going on. They've got to collaborate with their ideas. They can't each be developing a tool. They have to be collaborating towards an end product. They're building relationships with each other as they work intensely on this project. And they're passionate and excited about it because, this is something they care about, as equally does Marianne. And, I just want to raise the flag for, while she's not in New Jersey at the moment, she hasn't got lost. She's still doing amazing work. And you should watch that space because very soon you might be able to get your hands on the tool that the mini devs work to design. And really, that comes to the end of that. And I'm collecting stories of teachers, expert and newly branded, telling the story of their first steps into gameful practice, but particularly as it relates to self-determination theory, into that autonomy, competence, and relatedness. How are we furthering that with the technologies that we have? Are we making sure that we use that hammer to ensure children are getting quality learning experiences? So if you know of anybody who's either expert or just started and wants to share their story, I would love to. I've got about 10 or 15 stories ready to launch on the blog. And hopefully I'll be able to start churning out and jumping in with more. The way I'm going to run it is people will be co-authors on the blog, so everyone will get to have their say, make sure everything's told correctly, not in the potted version that I've given everyone today. So I'm sorry to run over time, people, but yeah, that's me. And I'd love to have some further stories. If you have teachers in your spheres of influence whose story you would love to share, that would be wonderful. And so thanks, everybody. I didn't see whether there were questions. There were mostly comments about projects and
yeah, we had a lot of side conversation, and I think we were all just like, wow, every time you shared a new project. One of the things that came up, one of the questions was, do you have a list of all the resources? So one of the things that Beatrix did was upload your slides as a downloadable file. Mm-hmm. If you're comfortable with that. Do you actually have a printout, Bron, of all the different projects and URLs that you shared?
No, but I could easily do that. Yeah.
I don't want to create extra work for you. There were just, I mean, if I could just give you my own feedback, and maybe the people that are left want to share any takeaways that you have as well. I mean, I just learned so much. I'm going to definitely look at Breakoutedu. I loved Buzzy TV. I love the notion of fact checking through gameplay. Had never thought about that before. And definitely, I didn't know about your project. So is your story collection a new project for you, or has that been going on for a while?
It's my passion project, but I didn't want to start it with like one story on the blog. And so I've mapped a bunch of stories, and I'll launch them kind of all at once, the first few, and then start getting others. But I want to make sure, like I said, to not just tell the expert stories, because they're too far away from for many mainstream teachers who haven't yet experienced the fun of being gameful. And so those first step stories, like the teacher that I'm going to spend time with now, she's done some small little gameful language activities, but she's never done anything like get the kids to design a game. This is totally new territory and very new for her to have students know more than her. And so I'm just there to consult. But that's part of the passion project, is I give my time to any of the schools that I tell a story for. So if I tell their story, then I give consultation time to the school.
That's a really neat project. I'll definitely, I'll go back and find the URL and definitely share that on social media and try to help you capture some additional teacher stories. I know the teachers that we've had so far on this webinar series have been really fascinating. Just to see physically what they're doing in their classrooms has been interesting. You know, like the example you gave with Lucas and the banners.
Yeah.
Right. To see the physical representations of game-based learning have been really interesting to me. So
yeah, there's so many things about Lucas's project that are just so well-rounded and well thought out. It's a very sweet project, very beautiful. Watch that space.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Bron. I'm really appreciate all you do and contribute, and your time sharing with us and people who will watch this in the future. And I can't wait to see you at another conference now that I'm back conferencing again.
Okay, excellent. Well, thanks to those who did come today, and thank you to those who may listen down the track. I'm very passionate about this, and I really want to find more of those stories. But as I said, not just the experts, because I think we already raised lots of experts. And I walked behind some people at a conference recently, and they were saying, you know, that was fantastic. I was so excited, and I just loved everything she did. But I know going back into school, I have no idea what I would do to get started on that. Right. And so we don't tell enough of those near novice stories, you know, the person who's just stepped out of their novice space or their first timer space, you know, and we're not going to jump that chasm until we do.
That's a really good point.
Well, thank you.
Create community around that. Yeah. So thank you so much, Bron. I really appreciate you and your time.
I hope it was useful.
It was really useful, and thanks to everybody that logged in, and hope to see you on one of our next webinars. So you all have a great day. And Bron, thank you again so much.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye, everybody.